Much like a high school fling, the Geno Smith phase is over in Seattle. DK Metcalf follows him out the door, but is he going to have second thoughts of missing out on the Sam Darnold era?
The Washington Commanders, fresh off an NFC championship game, trades and signing with boatloads of cash. Is Washington ready to take that next step?
Speaking of cash, Josh Allen sure got a ton of it. A lot of big time extensions dealt out this offseason, but the reigning MVP is now the new money man in the NFL.
Aaron Rodgers and Mr. Let's Ride himself, Russell Wilson. Both these guys are looking for a new home. Who will find one and who may be left out to dry?
Did you miss us? Sunday Scaries with Bucks McGee returns for an off-season recap on the heels of free agency kicking off.
It seems not too long ago we were right here celebrating the end of a dynasty. But here we are back, free agency, signs and trades. Thank God, the new year in the NFL is back. Mr. Nutmeg, how are we doing?
Good. And I want to, a very appropriate being for a live topic, David Arthur hopping on with a Go Chiefs Go chant.
Yep, go home. It was a fun ride while it lasted.
Bucks McGee. That famous time, the proverbial hot stove time of the NFL. I know it's a baseball term, but such a tantalizing time of the year to foresee all of the inner workings and let your imagination play with how new pieces can line up together.
Honestly, it's insane. Now I think more than years past where, it was not as much money spent, and if moves were made, they had to be really big moves. Now, at this point, anything goes. And especially if it's a team that, feels they're on the cusp of a possible championship run, they're picking up pieces here and there. Teams that got to cut money or trade in big guys. So it hasn't been short of newsworthy, that's for sure.
That's right. And speaking of newsworthy and on the cusp of many things, of the contract extensions dealt out in the early goings this offseason, the Buffalo Bills are ones very familiar with the concept of being on the cusp of something.
Yeah, they're a cuspy team, all right. Oh man, but yeah, they decided to pay the man his money, and I think they were smart. And Josh Allen, had a career year, MVP, so you got to pay your guys.
Yeah, and no hesitation in them trying to. I don't necessarily want to see keep the nucleus together, but at least keep the most important part of their nucleus there. For what they paid him, $330 million over a mere 6 years, $250 million of which is guaranteed, a monstrous amount. But if you do the math a little bit, that's actually seems like a kind of a cap-friendly deal.
Definitely is.
What,
Definitely
18,
cap friendly.
19 million per year? That seems like a bargain for someone like Josh Allen.
No, it definitely is. They were smart. They said, "Hey, you know what? Let's pay him up for." That's the way to do it now. You pay your guy up front, give him that money, and then you look at the cap hit. It's going to be great for them, and they're going to be able to add pieces. They still need to definitely add some pieces to this team, but when you lock up your MVP, it's going to make things a lot easier.
Possibly learning a lesson from the Chiefs, and maybe they won't have to restructure every year like Kansas City will do with Patrick Mahomes.
Yep, him and Chris Jones there with a little, restructure, trying to get enough money just to sign some, your draft picks and such. But yeah, I think everyone really learned from the Browns' mistake and such. So now, so now it's okay. Let's if we're going to guarantee money, let's do enough where it's not going to hinder us 2-3 years down the road.
Yeah. Now the Eagles, fresh off a Super Bowl victory, they didn't necessarily have to give Saquon a new contract, but for the season he had, and if I'm not mistaken, he only signed a 2-year deal or something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this was probably like a thank you for getting us over the hump to capture another Super Bowl victory. Let's lock up, at least right now, the best running back in the league, and reward him for his efforts in lifting us to a championship this year.
Yeah, Philly said, let's not do what the Giants did, and let's take care of the guy who does the work. So yeah, so he's the highest paid running back, and deservedly so. Had a heck of a year behind that offensive line, and I think you're going to see them continue to run the offense the way they did this year. But he totally deserved it.
Mm. And I don't have the numbers aren't on the top of my head, but what was it like? Was it a $50 million contract or something like that?
Yeah, he's making a little over 20 mil a year, I believe.
Yeah. So
Nowadays to pay a running back that's like, if that was like 2 years ago, people would have been like, "What are you, nuts?"
yeah, I know. As we spoke very much last season about the reemergence of the running back position.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden it's the in thing to do to give them a boatload of dollars.
I think, and I always believe that the running back was vital. Yeah, teams, if they've got an elite running back, they're going to run him into the ground. Unfortunately, everyone can point to the Todd Gurley situation. The Rams ran him into the ground, and he just was never the same. But I think now with backs being more receivers and things like that, kind of saves a little tread on the tires. But running backs they're a legit part of your offense. You got to pay these guys.
Mm-hmm. To the other side of the ball, I mean, at one point we probably were wondering if Maxx Crosby was going to get out of Vegas because the Raiders are such a disaster. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's loyalty, maybe he loves the city, maybe it's the Tom Brady effect. But Maxx Crosby returns with a $100 million contract. I believe you told me when it happened that it's the highest contract ever for a non-quarterback, right?
Yeah, but you know what? That happens. It happens every year. Justin Jefferson
That's
at
true.
one point was that guy. So it's like I'm sure someone's going to sign something in another couple of months, and they'll be the new one. So it's one of those things. But you had it. They had to take care of him. If they had lost Crosby, it would have been a serious hit to that team. He's pretty much the lifeline of those guys. And as long as they can keep him healthy and he can do what he's been doing, he's going to be a force on that defense.
Is it of note to you that the title holder of that moniker is a defensive player?
Well, let's be honest. Pass rushers and such, and more are elite. Let's look at Cincinnati. Hendrickson, that guy has led the league in sacks. Unfortunately, Cincinnati doesn't want to pay him that money. You got Myles Garrett, who I think is actually the new non-guy now, with his 40 mil a year, because he wanted a trade, but unfortunately, money talks. So no, when it comes to if it's an elite guy who can keep your team, who can single-handedly keep your team in a game, then yeah, you got to pay him.
Yeah, I think Myles Garrett very much played discontent into a bigger deal, as opposed to playing the good soldier and just making Cleveland think he was happy and lowballing him.
At the end of the day, I guess you'd rather be the highest paid and play on a team that probably has no chance of playoff aspiration than to maybe leave and get your ring. But to each their own.
What signal do you think it sends to the Raiders locker room that Crosby returned with that level of commitment?
I think it shows that they want to win. I think with Pete Carroll, there now, and bringing in some new pieces, and everyone's kind of talking about the Brady effect behind the scenes. I think they're trying to be legitimate. They want to be a competitive team right off the bat. And why not do that by signing one of the elite rushers in the league?
Yeah. Uh, not a rusher, but a lead at his position. Jaycee Horn also getting a, was it 70 million guaranteed, $100 million contract from the Carolina Panthers. And I mean, we spoke about this as a situation where the Panthers don't exactly have a ton to work with, but I kind of look at it from a glass half full perspective because they don't have a lot to work with. I think it's a good message for them, for the to the fans, to the organization throughout the locker room, for them to lock up the one critical piece, young piece, no less, that could actually be a building block here.
Yeah, and I get it, like a good faith kind of deal, but at the same time, I don't think it's enough to hinder them from doing other things, but
No.
you kind of I think you kind of overpaid. He's good. There's no doubt he's got talent, but I do think they semi overpaid a bit. I think he had another year or so on the contract, and if you gave him a little less and allocated that to maybe picking up another receiver, because I think they do need another receiver. But hey, like you said, it's a good faith move. You're kind of showing your fans that you want to keep your guys. People have kind of complained about the ownership there and how things have gone. So maybe this turns things around.
They certainly need to bring in some offensive linemen too, especially with the way Bryce turned around the second half of last season. I would think the next step would be to prove to the fans and your quarterback that you want to keep him clean and not
Yeah.
injured.
Yeah, because this year is going to be really pivotal for Young to really show if the turnaround from last year just wasn't 8-9 games of okay, I got lucky and got on a bit of a hot streak. Like this is who I'm going to become, because if he digresses in any way, shape, or form, they're just going to be calling for his head and a new quarterback.
Yeah. Now on to trades, and Um, we spoke a little bit last season and going into like Washington obviously was way ahead of schedule, get all the way to the NFC Championship game. Jaden Daniels uh, capped off a rookie season with the Rookie of the Year award, and this was a team with a tremendous amount of cap space. I think $90 million, right?
Yep.
And uh, issues necessary to address with not only with their offensive line, with their defense. For the first half of the season, their defense was very much a sieve, and they they also needed to diversify their offense a little bit. Daniels' biggest target was Zach Ertz, who actually comes back for one more go, but they beef up that offensive line. They get Laramie Tunsil, the best contract negotiator, maybe shy of Lamar Jackson, maybe even better than Lamar Jackson in the NFL to beef up
Mm-hmm.
to beef up the big ugly front, and then they bring in Deebo Samuel, who I think is a phenomenal over the middle option for a young quarterback to use as a security blanket.
Oh, definitely. I think they're going to use Debo kind of like San Fran did. I think you're going to kind of see, Cliff Kingsbury kind of, do some new things with the offense. The main thing with Debo is he just has to be healthy. The last year or two in San Fran, he's been nicked up, bruised up. So they've got to keep him healthy. I think with him and Scary Terry, it's going to open up that offense. If, Zach Ertz, stays healthy, does, what he did last year, that'll help out. And yeah, Tunsil signing is huge. That trade was big. It's like pretty much you've got, your blind side taken care of. Now, I'm sure, in the draft they'll pick up some pieces, but they're trying to match the Eagles. Because let's be honest, in that division, at this point, those two teams will probably come out in the playoffs. They'll probably make the playoffs, but the Commanders know what happened to them, in the championship game, and they've got to figure out how to stop the Eagles.
And specifically how to stop Saquon Barkley. Don't give up his 60-yard rushing plays and
Hey, 60 yards here and there. What's that really do?
and hot off the press, a little before we started the show, I noticed that they also brought back one of the Brown boys. Noah Brown gets another deal, albeit only for 1 year. So just continuing to fill out the offense with new pieces and returning pieces. So I don't think Washington is ignorant of the fact that they know they have a finite timeline before they
Hmm.
need to pay Jaden Daniels. So they're going in now when they should, much like the Seahawks did in the early Russell Wilson days.
Yeah, that's the blueprint. If you've got yourself a quarterback, you draft yourself a quarterback that could be, generational, be an elite quarterback. If you can try to pull out a Super Bowl within the first 4 years before you got to pay them, then you do it. So Washington's playing it well. It's just, unfortunately, the Eagles are in their division, and the Eagles don't show any signs of slowing down. So it's almost kind of like those Jordan years where the Knicks were there but just couldn't get over the hump because Mike was there. That's almost what this kind of looks like. And the Eagles are young, they're not an old team, so it's going to be interesting how Washington approaches this. But they've gone in this offseason and really solidified positions.
Not to be too tongue in cheek, but all the spending cuts from Doge are being transferred over to the city's NFL franchise.
Wow. Oh, now we see what's going on. Okay. Okay. At least they're spending it well. They're spending it well.
Yeah. Back to Vegas. They've got a new QB in town. Geno Smith stays on the West Coast, but changes conferences. Heads to the Raiders and for a reunion with Pete Carroll. So this is probably, even if it's just a stopgap, this is a very solid stopgap to bridge the gap to whatever the future at quarterback holds for the Raiders.
Oh no, I think it was a great trade. I don't know if a third round pick would be ideal for me, but
Yeah,
hey, like Geno's been solid. Like literally, if you look at his record, the last 4 or 5 years, he's got like the sixth most wins in the league. Like he's been a winner. Like it's not like he's been garbage. He's had a high completion percentage. He's been solid. So I think him, going to the Raiders gives them some stability at the position, be it maybe 2 years, maybe, because I'm sure they're still going to start looking for their the future at that position. But that gives them some instant credibility. A guy who can run an offense. Him and Pete work well together. So I think it was a solid move.
yeah, solid move, solid move. Even if the price tag was a little bit high for what he is at the stage of his career.
Yeah, I think the Raiders were just desperate. They're like, we need to get somebody here. If we got to give up, something a little more than we wanted to, at least we've got something for the next couple of years. And
Yeah,
I'm sure at that point they're going to make some moves to kind of recruit. Maybe in another move to get that pick back or a couple picks slower, just to have some extra draft capital. But hey, if you in that, especially in that division, if you want to be competitive, you need a quality signal caller.
Raiders fans probably growing nauseous with the thought of another year of Aiden O'Connell under center.
They were mad. They wanted Uncle Rico back. They were like, Uncle Rico, come
Oh, and there's some irony, of course, to where he wound up. But we'll get to that more in a little bit.
on.
The quarterbacks changing places via trade. One of them is Kenny Smallhands Pickett, now fresh off a Super Bowl ring as Jalen Hurts backup, heads to Cleveland, and I gotta let the gears turn a little bit here. They're almost hedging their bets that Deshaun Watson's gonna flake out, or maybe all prayers answered and a buyout is reached, and maybe Kenny Pickett is the quarterback of the now, not necessarily of the future in Cleveland.
Like, I guess, all right, I just don't get Cleveland at all. I don't know why you wouldn't have re-signed Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston would have been a better option. He showed some glimpses. Like he could throw the ball. Like Kenny Pickett, if he's your starter week one, then you guys have just really totally screwed the pooch. Like we know Watson's hurt, and with all his drama, I don't know if he'll ever start again. Like I really don't. I think, Cleveland needs to just move on. Russell Wilson was there on a visit. I just don't know why you just don't stick with Jameis and say, okay, you know what, this guy worked well in our offense, shore some things up, and we might be a playoff team. I don't get it, but hey, I guess you feel Kenny Pickett's got a little something. Yeah, he's bringing a Super Bowl ring, but he took a couple snaps in the game at the end, but I just don't know what he's really bringing to Cleveland.
Yeah, and to your point on the Pickett kind of is being kind of a fresh start for him. That
It's like a fresh start times 3. Like at this point, like he wasn't going to do anything in Philly. Like he was going to be a backup. So now I guess he gets the chance to compete. But at this point, Cleveland has the second pick, so they've got to be going quarterback. They have to be.
they just load up at the position. Then Watson, get whatever you can out of him, and then you have Pickett. Then you have a young guy that hopefully will work out this time and not just add to the list on the back of the shirt.
Well, the problem is this: Watson. That's if he even plays this year. He had the surgery again, so who knows if he's going to play this year. So you're telling me at this point, Pickett's going to be the guy, or is Russ going to be if you end up signing Wilson, or who knows who else is floating around out there? It's just whoever you draft. If you do draft a quarterback at number 2, you want a solid veteran that this guy can learn from. I don't think Kenny Pickett's the guy. And then Russ, okay, I don't think Russ wants to be a stopgap. He probably still feels he's got another 3 or 4 years. So it's Cleveland, man. They just don't know what they're doing. They just don't. But that's okay because Garrett, Myles Garrett wanted that money because he didn't want to be there.
Yes. I remembered where I was going before my brain lapse, and Jameis Winston. You touched on his familiarity with the offense, and not only the offense, but that extends to the coaching staff with Stefanski, with the weapons they have there, the receivers and such. So there seems to be there. You could almost make the argument like the reason the Browns struggle at this position so much over the years is the fact that they're constantly changing it. No one's ever getting used to each other. The rhythm is always disrupted. So there's almost seems to be the argument like, well, maintain the same quarterback, even if it's not necessarily that all pro guy, there's still value to that. And they just continue to not do that, not realize that.
No, it's like a quarterback who has 4 or 5 different, who gets, a different offensive coordinator every year. You don't get that continuity. You don't, you're constantly having to learn a whole new system and try to figure everything out. If you know that, freaking Watson isn't coming back this year, if you know that freaking Jameis, he's, he'll throw you 40 touchdowns, but throw you 40 interceptions. But if he can at least move the ball down the field and help you put up almost 30 points a game, he could be a liability, but he knows the offense. He's going to give you a chance. So now you're going to bring in an unknown, and now you're going to hope that, whether it's Pickett, if you do sign Russell Wilson, who knows, and then you bring in whoever you draft, like what does it become? And you've got to watch out because your run game is finally coming back because Chubb is coming off the injury, but you don't want to run him into the ground. So yet again, Cleveland, no idea what they're doing.
The trade that probably was I don't know whether I want to call it a shock, but certainly had like the most shock value was DK Metcalf leaving Seattle, heading to the Steelers. And this one's odd to me because the irony of our next topic of who Seattle brought in at quarterback, I'm almost wondering if what Seattle's been dealing with at quarterback, with Geno kind of fading off a little bit and their backup situation not being that great, is DK kind of gonna have be sour grapes in if Pittsburgh doesn't get a quarterback in there and seeing Sam Darnold sling touchdowns around in the PNW.
I think it was just a situation where I don't know if Seattle really wanted to pay him 30 plus million. And I think they kind of got tired of the penalty act with him because he's a talent. There's no doubt he's a talent, but he'd be quick to get an offensive flag, and I think his time was up there. Excuse me. So he goes to Pittsburgh with Carl Pickens, who's a guaranteed good for 2 or 3 flags of his own. So they're going to be great. They're going to be great together. The penalties may match the yards combined. That'll be incredible. So I think Seattle was like, you know what? It's just time for let's see what we can get for a clean slate. And I was shocked that it was Philly, with Philly not knowing who the quarterback is going to be, because that's great. You've got wide receivers if you're Pittsburgh, but now who's throwing? You don't know. But Seattle, got what they could for him, and they're moving on. It'll be interesting, the dynamic in that wide receiver room for sure in Pittsburgh.
It's funny to think of Pittsburgh's receiving core as extremely undisciplined when we think back to the Hines Ward days, and this was a position that you didn't have to worry about things like that, and now you've got 2 hotheads on either side of the field, and like you said, the penalty yardage could outmatch the receiving yards because they're both very much boom or bust weapons at certain points in the game.
Exactly, and you still got to figure out the run game there. So it's interesting to see how this dynamic is going to work. DK, like I said, talented. Now he's making 30 mil a year. So now it's time for him to really perform and show up. Now, is it a situation depending who the quarterback's going to be? Who's going to, when it's crunch time, who's getting the ball? Is it Pickens? Is it going to be DK? It's going to be interesting to see.
It may it may likely be the only way the Steelers can move on from Mike Tomlin, by just creating a tinderbox so volatile that no one could survive the aftermath that comes out of it.
At that point, Tomlin's like, all right, I'm done. Okay, there you go. 9-8, I'm out. I'm done. I don't even care anymore. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, the quarterback position, whoever they get, is going to really tell the tale of how this team goes. So hopefully, DK and George can behave themselves. But like I said, it's going to be a hot room.
Yeah. So the topic of the hour, of course, is free agency. We're fresh off that signing window being officially open, and money did fly. The aforementioned Sam Darnold, I would say, would be the biggest topic, the biggest storyline of signings. And he got the contract he probably wanted, under $10 million, although it wasn't from the Vikings. He's headed to Seattle.
Yeah. I was in the camp of you keep Darnold and you trade JJ. I really was. I won't lie. I think, and it's not like Darnold's 30-something years old, though it feels like that because he's been in the league for a while, but he's 27, going to be 28. You figure 4 or 5 years solid if he stays on this, trajectory. And if that's the case, then you probably could get a second rounder for JJ. Why not? Why not get some capital? I would have kept Darnold, but they didn't. I guess they're going to go with JJ, but there are some rumors that a certain number 12 may find his way into, Vikings land. I just don't know, but Seattle opened up the purses a little bit. It's a contract that kind of mirrors like a Baker Mayfield type contract for the amount of money. So they've got some weapons there. It's going to be interesting how they go about using Darnold. It's still, the kind of the same coaching tree. So I don't think they're going to be doing anything really different with him. So now he put up the numbers, and now it's going to be time for him to show out.
Do you think it was Sam picking a better situation, or do you think it was the Vikings having cold feet with paying him the money he wanted?
I think the Vikings. I think it was a situation where he wasn't going to be the starter. I think if he was going to be the starter, he might have said, okay, well, let's work something out. I think they could have hammered out a contract, but I don't know if the Vikings were ready to say, okay, Sam, here you go. Because, you've got a lottery pick coming off of injury, and, this is the guy who, in theory, is going to be the future. So they probably said, you know what? Thank you, Sam, but this is who we're going to go with. Like I said, I would have kept Sam Darnold, and I would have traded JJ. And some people will look at me like I've got three heads, but I think Sam works well in that offense with the talent that's there. He doesn't have to do too much. And if you can get a second round or a couple threes for JJ, I think you probably would have gotten a 2 easy for him. Then, you can put those picks to, either, on something on the defensive side, or if you feel you want to upgrade some spots on the offense.
It's an interesting theory to me that Sam may not have been the starter, or there was no expectation for him to be the starter, because JJ is coming off a significant injury. So that's going to take some time to recover and get back to playing shape. Obviously, it was very early, so I'm sure he's been staying in shape this whole time. However, no time to learn the game throughout all last season, aside from just on a theoretical basis. So I feel like even if it was a few games, half the season, there was still a window open for Sam to at least be a temporary starter. And if they had any type of remotely similar season to how they had last year, you're not going to make a change from Sam in the middle of the season.
Right. Now, the X factor in all this is there are rumors that Aaron Rodgers is really interested in coming to Minnesota. I don't know why he wants to follow in the footsteps of Brett Favre. Let's go to the Jets and then we go to the Vikings. I don't get it. But if the Vikings decide that, okay, yeah, we want to win now, we're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers, that makes no sense to me, because now you've got this guy who's going to be a starter, and you want JJ to learn from this guy after the drama and the show in New York. I don't get it. Then why don't you just keep Sam?
Mm-hmm. Bucks McGee, I never thought I'd see you impatient to talk about Aaron Rodgers. We were building up to this.
you know what it was? It was beautiful to see the implosion in New York. I won't lie. I'll be honest, because we all know how I feel about the man. But it just makes no sense to me. I don't know why the Vikings would be interested in him. I don't know why he's a quality stopgap. Like, we know what Aaron Rodgers is all about. But this is who you want your rookie to learn from, or you're going to be second-year guy to learn from?
Yeah.
Like, you would have been better off bringing Joe Flacco in, who, by the way, is visiting the Giants.
Yeah.
So, like, Minnesota, I don't get it. If that's was going to be your option, and you guys are really interested in, Aaron Rodgers, I just would have signed Sam Darnold and traded JJ and just moved on.
Yeah, big swing and a miss for a contract that really is a bargain by today's quarterback standards.
Exactly, man. You're underpaying this guy, and he's willing to take it. Shoot, why not?
Yeah. Well, as the quarterback world turns in the city of New York, Justin Fields now takes over the aforementioned Aaron Rodgers' previous job. This is a little bit of a surprise to me. I mean, I'm glad on one hand because I think he got the short end of the stick in Pittsburgh. So I'm glad he's got a starting job that's really his. I don't foresee the Jets bringing someone in to take his job, and we certainly know they don't draft quarterbacks well. But at the same time, from Justin Fields' perspective, it's the Jets.
Well, here's the deal. They pay. It's a 2-year deal, $40 million, 30 guaranteed, I believe. So he's guy got his money, and you're right. He got the raw end of the deal in Pittsburgh. They basically kind of dangled the starting job in front of him, knowing very well Tomlin knew who he wanted. But Mike Tomlin's such a great guy, but no one talks about these things.
Anyways.
Yeah. So you know, they weren't going to offer him the job, and I think Fields knew that. So the Jets said, "Here you go," and it's a whole new regime. I think he's gonna surprise some people. I don't know if he's gonna end up being like a 35 touchdown, 4,800 yard passer kind of guy, but I think they're gonna build the offense into what he does. I think it's gonna be a lot of run, and it's a work in progress. You know, Aaron Glenn has said that. You know, it's gonna be a work in progress. We're gonna take it brick by brick and see what we can do. But no, I'm happy that he's got himself a starting job, and it's funny that he has a job and Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson don't as of now. So it's kind of funny. And everyone dumped on Justin Fields, but everyone also knows that he kind of got a raw deal in Chicago. No line, constant change of coaches. So now hopefully there's going to be a little more consistency, and we're going to really see who Justin Fields is.
And played well at the end of his tenure in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's got to be. Speaking of Aaron Glenn, it's got to be very refreshing to the gangrene faithful to see him cleaning house like he is right now.
Yeah, and he's coming off. He's got the bit of bravado, a little Rexian, in a way, and hopefully it works out well for him. We'll see what happens. They still have a good defense. There's still some pieces. There are going to be some guys they're going to have to pay. There's going to be the Sauce Gardner situation because corners are getting paid, so they're going to have to figure that out along with some other things. But right now, I think it's probably a pretty stable situation for Fields.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to go in and just, try to be the guy. Him and, Garrett Wilson were, teammates in, Ohio State. So there's that connection there. So I think you're going to see some things from them. They've got pieces. It's just whether, they can figure out an offense that fits Fields and what they can do.
Yeah. I think I generally like the move for him. I think that's a solid move. I just need to get over the fact that I expect disaster from the Jets.
Well, it's an automatic. Come on now. That's what we've grown to know. Let's be honest. From Sanchez to Darnold all the way through. So it's
what is it? 13, 14, 15 years now.
Yeah, so now, Rex Ryan thought this year he was going to be the head coach. He was like proclaiming he was the guy, and now he's still sitting at ESPN, and Aaron Glenn's going to, take his chance and try to turn this thing around. So at least they're competitive.
Yeah. We'll get into it later on, but it's funny that you kind of mentioned the 6 degrees of separation of Justin Fields.
I'm telling you, man, you watch all this football stuff, you find out these little nuggets of great information, I tell you.
Another, as the quarterback world turns in New York, although this is not in New York, but a former New York product, my Colts bring in Danny Dimes.
The week 1 starter, I'm calling it now. Bookmark it, write it in ink. Danny Dimes is starting, and I'm gonna tell you this: if Danny Dimes starts for you guys, we're getting Danny Dimes jerseys. Danny Dimes is our guy. I will pull out the Danny Dimes jerseys. I will rock a Danny Dimes jersey, baby. He's gonna get hit. He's gonna Danny Dimes, baby.
Well, I mean, obviously he's wearing the horseshoe. I kind of have to root for him, but there would be wait.
You don't.
There would be some kind of special irony if Danny Dimes was very successful with the Colts after the Giants went away from Saquon. That blew up in their face, and then Danny Dimes also blows up in their face with success.
I'm hoping for it. I'm hoping the Giants taste it again. I am hoping for this. I'm hoping Danny Dimes goes for 35 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, and becomes a Pro Bowl alternate. I don't care. I'm calling it now. The re-emergence of Danny Dimes. Because you know what? He's in a stable situation.
Yeah.
He's not in that cluster muss known as the Giants, who don't know what they're doing, and their coach and GM are probably getting fired at the end of this year because they don't
Yeah.
even know who the quarterback is. Their only quarterback on contract is Mr. Cutlets himself. That's it. So I think he may work. I think it could work out because you know what? He's going in. There's no expectation. Right now, AR is who knows what AR is. It's like they've soured on him.
Well,
You
and
really
that's
get
the thing. That's the thing. If I'm being glass half full, it's very obvious that Steichen wanted to throw with AR and he just couldn't do it. The kid's got a cannon, but I don't know if he could hit a bullseye with a beach ball throwing down the field. His accuracy was so bad. So Danny Dimes is someone. Yes, he's been erratic, but he does have a big arm. This is someone that Steichen could actually use the way he wants to use a quarterback.
a la Jalen Hurts in a weird way, because
Yeah,
don't forget, Dimes can move.
yeah,
Dimes can move. Don't forget that was one of the reasons they beat the Green Bay in that epic playoff game, and excuse me, Danny Dimes' claim to fame. So I think they're looking for a reason to move on from AR. I don't. But
yeah,
here's the thing: they didn't treat AR right. Like some of those calls were horrible. Like we saw a couple of those games where they ran him a couple of times when they shouldn't have, and he got blown up in the backfield. Like
yeah.
I just think it was a bad marriage to begin with. So I think it's a situation where if Dimes works out, I think trade deadline you could see them. I don't know if they'd move AR, but I think there'd be some interest from somebody. But
Yeah.
right now, I think they're good. Hey, Danny Dimes is, and mind you, I said enough about Danny Dimes, but this could be the place where it comes back to life for him. This could be it.
I mean, heck, if Seattle can get a third rounder for Geno Smith, then we should get at least a second rounder for AR.
No, 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 no. You cannot. You cannot. And then, no, you'd be looking to get a
No, I'm
fifth.
thinking of at this point in their career, Geno's on the back end. AR is hurt and has some issues, but he's still a very young prospect. There's at least still a lot of
He's a
prospect.
questionable He's questionable because at least Geno has the track record to go along where you could say, okay, I could see why. I would give a higher pick to Joe Milton out of New England because I think that kid's got talent. And he can throw the ball out of a stadium.
Yeah. Well, I think AR could too. You won't know where the ball's actually going to wind up out of the stadium.
I think it was a bad pick, but I think it's only because AR needs to be behind a really established quarterback where he could learn for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. I think it was just a bad pick in that sense. But when you're picking that high and you need the buzz and you need a quarterback, teams reach.
Yeah. And with Danny Dimes being in Indy, that of course ends my hope that the return of Uncle Rico would be factual history. No,
Sell out.
he is succumbing to the role of backup and ring chaser and choosing to hold Patrick Mahomes' towel for a year.
He fell to the dark side of the force. He should have known. Have you seen the ring chasers that the Chiefs have gotten? Where's DeAndre Hopkins?
Baltimore.
Yeah. So you go chasing rings with Kansas City, it don't work out well for you. But
Yeah.
I guess you need a backup. I'm sure you could. I would have went with Joe Flacco. Honestly, I love Uncle Rico. He's like that. He's just a fun guy to root for. But I don't know, man. Hey, go with it, Kansas City. I got no words.
I'm a little saddened, but I guess I'll just
does.
hope for the Giants looking bad again and Danny Dimes performing beautifully.
I thought when the Colts had gotten Uncle Rico, I thought this is when he was going to go on like a 2 or 3 year run and he was going to be really entertaining. But
yeah,
hopes and dreams. But don't worry, my Danny Dimes jersey, it's sitting in the cart. NFLshop.com. Get him while you can.
We haven't done an extra point segment in a while, so let's rip through some bonus headlines.
Extra point. Do, 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 do. And not Justin Tucker.
Oh, that may be too soon.
Very too soon, man. Those 12 or 13 masseuses are thinking otherwise, my friend.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
As quick as Joey Bosa was cut from the Chargers, he quickly gets scooped up by the Bills. I guess this is just the Chargers being tired of the injury history here, but solid bargain hunting job by Buffalo.
Yeah, hey, I thought for sure he was going to go to San Fran and they were going to do the whole brothers playing together because San Fran has really fallen apart this offseason. Let's be honest. San Fran is really like not what they used to be. The window is closed there. So I thought, okay, they're going to bring Bosa over and kind of, he was going to revitalize his career a little bit. But
yeah, playing with Buffalo, brother.
Yeah. So basically, you get rid of Von Miller and you bring in a Bosa brother. If he can stay healthy, then yeah, it's great. But if he only ends up playing 8 or 9 games, then really, what did you get?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, hey, I hope it works out for him.
And I mean, do you think it was just a matter of the injuries being too much for them to have patience with from the Chargers' perspective?
I think so. He was like when he was on the field, he was dominant, but like literally, like how many games has he? He missed so many games. And it was just because then it was a situation of him and Mack. Now they kept Mack for 1 year, 18 million.
Yes. As surprised as that was gonna be.
And I think it was all tied to health. Mack was on the field and Bosa wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. And Mack produced enough where you could say, okay, we'll keep you. 18, I thought was a little high, but okay, he's earned it.
That's a big number for 1 year. That it's almost kind of like Khalil Mack, almost like he doesn't necessarily see his future there, but just like take a big number now, put up another season, and then try again for a big contract elsewhere in a year.
Yeah. But the Chargers felt that it was better to give him 18 and let Bosa go. So,
yeah,
like I said, if he can stay healthy, Bosa could really help that defense. Gives them a real elite rusher when healthy. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. I think Buffalo was at the point now where it's okay. We're going to look for bargain veterans to kind of patch some things up. That doesn't always work. Yeah. You end up picking up a guy, when he's on the other side of glory, on the other end of the career. They need some pieces to make sure that they're, back in the hunt, but they're banking on Bosa being healthy.
Yeah. Another high-profile veteran that was cut but is yet to find a new team is, of course, Cooper Kupp, former Super Bowl MVP.
Wow.
And this one to me, like I always find that when a team is shopping a high-priced, high-profile veteran name and nothing happens quickly, it's almost like everyone just like, you know what? Let's just back off because we know they want to get rid of him. We know they don't want to pay that contract anymore. Let's just wait till he gets cut. And sure enough, every time they get cut. So it's like it's one of those situations where I know you want to be public and like give a fan favorite and someone who's contributed a lot, including a championship to your franchise, a proper kind of public farewell. But when you do that, it's almost like you tip your cap a little bit.
Well, the writing was on the wall. The Rams were up front and told them, they were like, if we can't trade you, we're going to cut you. So it was there. They couldn't find a trade partner, which I find kind of weird. I would think someone would have given just enough because I think he still has enough in the tank. I think the injuries may have scared some teams because he has been banged up the last couple of years. But I think, especially if you've got a young receiving room, I think he would have been really good. I think, like New England, they've got a lot of young receivers. I think he'd fit well there. And
Yeah.
it's not to say that it won't happen now, but now he's cut, and I'm sure there's going to be conversations. I think Seattle has been, kind of rumored and kind of kicking the tires. I think he's got another couple of years, and I think he should be able to go out still playing and not just a cut cap casualty.
That's right. And that's the thing because now I'm actually surprised he's still on the market when we're doing this show because I would have thought he would have been scooped up right away. He does have a lot of value, like you said, off the field as well as on. And especially if it's someone like Seattle, that's almost like an extra rub to hurt the Rams in the sense where now they have all this dead money they have to pay him. So now Seattle gets this veteran player who can win you games, and it's also a double hurt to your division rival.
Yeah, it's funny because the wide receiver market, in this whole free agency was the talk of the town. But everyone thought, once, and I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but once Chris Godwin was re-signed, it all kind of just fell apart because Godwin left 20 million on the table from New England to
Yeah.
re-sign. So and then you still have Stephon Diggs, even though he's coming back from the knee injury. DeAndre Hopkins, though he re-signed with somebody, so it was almost like everything kind of dried up a bit. But you would have thought that someone would have said, "All right, Kupp's available. He's going to fit in. He doesn't have to be the number one. He could be a nice number two." Now, that's not to say that a contender doesn't scoop him up. Like, it wouldn't surprise me, like, if he really, really wants to play, if he talks to Kansas City. Kansas City could use him because they sure as heck ain't got anybody who can catch the ball.
Yeah. Including
Like,
their
let's be real.
Hall of Fame tight end.
Oh yeah, the greatest of all time. Yeah. Anyways, but I'm not bitter at all, folks. I'm not bitter at all. Um, so it's just one of those things. I think he signed somewhere. It's just going to be where he feels. I don't know if it's about just playing or he's like, I've won a Super Bowl. I just want to get out there. I want to play, or he wants to play on a contender. If Adam Thielen can get re-signed, Cooper Kupp should be able to get somewhere.
Adam Thielen. Well, speaking of the Panthers, Bucks McGee, I know we have to get to Aaron Rodgers, but it would be remiss not to allow you a brief moment to speak of the Cowboys. How does losing Rico Dowdle affect Dallas's outlook as
Another
well?
year of doing absolutely crap. Look at you, Cowboy fans. If I were you guys, trade that helmet in, like legit. I just don't understand. Rico down, literally, like one of the highlights of your team. Just let him walk. You guys sign a bunch, and then you guys sign. Now, mind you, they were decent guys, but no way did they improve your team. So now you are no better than you were. You still have to re-sign freaking Micah Parsons. People are screaming for you to trade him because you just probably aren't going to pay him till week 1 or 2. That franchise is just a hot mess. So your loss is probably the Panthers' gain, even though they let Miles Sanders go. Miles Sanders was always, he was that guy who you always was like, okay, he does a little something, he's quality. But it's Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. For you fantasy guys, who's going to handcuff who?
Yeah, exactly. And uh, to your point about the rework, I mean, Dak reworks his deal, CD reworks his deal, but like you said, it's probably just all going to go to Micah Parsons anyway. So what's the point?
Like literally, I've never seen a franchise just so inept in all of my life. You could give a 12-year-old like a Madden franchise and he would run it better than this mess. Jerry Jones needs to sell it and just move on with life. Cowboys fans, it's get ready for maybe third place in that division because you guys got nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. Well, Bucks McGee, to touch on the 6 degrees of Justin Fields separation before, your other favorite topic, Aaron Rodgers, and you kind of hinted this already. I don't know how he's got not one, not two, but three franchises all in the bidding here. I don't know why Minnesota's interested, although, like you said, the irony of him following in the footsteps of Brett Favre is extremely palpable. I don't know why the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested when they had two quarterbacks who I'd probably rather take even in Russ's debilitated state in the end of his career. Probably take both of them over him. And for the love of everything holy, why would the Giants even want to come close to this man?
All right. So to give props to the Steelers real quick, they did re-sign Mason Rudolph. So Clark Kent is back in the building.
All right, all right.
So here's the thing. Mr. Rodgers gave, everybody some fool's gold the last 4 or 5 games of the season last year. So everyone now is thinking, oh, he's back, he's great, yada yada. And it's not. Like, literally, the guy's gonna be 42? Like, be real. Like, he's not going to be good. But for some reason, these teams are desperate. The Steelers are just stupid. Like, I just don't get it. At this point, it's time to blow it all up and move on. You think Aaron Rodgers is going to get you to a Super Bowl? You guys haven't won a playoff game in like 5 or 6 years. Like, it's not going to happen. Vikings, I don't get it. You had your quarterback there and you let him go because you thought JJ was the guy, but now you want to bring this Jamoke in and he's going to ruin everything.
Yeah.
The Giants, they're just desperate. They're just desperate for something. They just throw stuff on the wall and hope it sticks. Yeah, literally. It's like a monkey flinging poo. I don't get it. But it's the Giants, and I enjoy the implosion and let it continue.
Imagine the end of Aaron Rodgers' career destroying both storied New York franchises.
Like, literally, with Aaron Rodgers, like, everyone swore, everyone was putting him in the GOAT conversation. The guy is just going to franchises and just burning them down. Like, let's be realistic, just burning them down. And then the Steelers, for some reason, are interested in him. I don't get it. You had Russell Wilson. Now, mind you, yeah, he wasn't the greatest, but he throws a pretty decent deep ball and could probably get you 10 wins with the new weapons. But, all right, fine. You want Aaron Rodgers. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think by the weekend, either Russ or Aaron will sign with somebody, and I think those franchises are just going to fall apart, especially whoever Aaron signs for. It's over and done with. The Green Bay days are over. Let's just let them retire and just move on, man. Move on.
Bucks McGee, another show chock full of information and a show chock full of all of our favorite topics as well. Big things ahead for Washington. A lot of guys getting paid, deservedly so. We'll see how the DK and Daniel Jones things work out. And of course,
Daniel Jones!
How the dominoes fall with Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and whoever gets the leftover scraps. Bucks McGee, free agency started. The offseason is in high gear. Take us off air, sir.
Oh, it feels good to be back. I tell you, man, it feels good. Yeah, baseball's starting, but everybody knows NFL offseason is where it's at. Who knows where Aaron Rodgers is going to end up? It's going to be hilarious. Washington, impressed. Going to see what you guys do. Next step is the draft, and I'm sure there's going to be some fun there. So let's get to the draft and let's get picking.